So thanks for joining us today. We have Michael Broder from BHB Pest Elimination in New York. Michael, welcome.
Great to be here. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah, no problem. So you're the new president of the New York State Pest Management Association. Your term started this summer, right?
Yeah, just a month or two ago.
Okay, cool. And how long does that run?
2 years.
2 years. Okay. So just as a matter of introduction, can you tell us a little bit about BHB Pest Elimination, how you got into this from the beginning there?
It's a long story, but of course, here you go. Like many in this industry, my dad started the business when I was a little kid back in 1969. And, at the time, roaches in particular were everywhere. And as a kid, watching my dad start the business, I did not realize how revolutionary he was in that he saw that there was a need in the industry for higher quality services. In those days, especially in New York City, everybody was just doing squirt, squirt, goodbye, I'll see you next month.
Okay.
And everybody had problems. They would spend 1 to 2 minutes in an apartment or a restaurant and just squirt, squirt, goodbye, good luck. And roaches, German cockroaches in particular, were absolutely everywhere. And so he just said, I think that there are people who want quality work. And so he said, instead of spending 1 to 2 minutes, what if I spend 1 to 2 hours in that apartment? And covered everything and gave him a guarantee that you're not going to see anything. And just through hard work and sweat and blood, it worked. He was able to, get rid of these issues where people always had a problem. So he started that, like I said, back in 1969. And I should say, it wasn't like he started this with great resources. He literally started this with just a few dollars in his pocket and, I think I can make it work. He did everything. He didn't have an office. He had an answering service. So he printed up cards with, their number on it, and he would give out the cards, and then he would do a call. And he always had a huge pocket full of dimes to make phone calls then. So he'd go to a payphone and call the answering service, get, the calls. He'd make the calls, set up appointments for himself. He literally did everything on his own. I always wanted to follow in those footsteps. Even when I was in kindergarten, they said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I drew a picture of me with a spray tank and said, in fact, I wish I still had that picture. I to this day, I remember drawing it.
Yeah.
But, it was just in my blood. And one of the things, my dad was very particular with a lot of things, and he always liked to have his cards in packs of 50. So when I was a wee little kid, that was my first job, was to count out 50 cards and put a rubber band around it, put it back in a bag so he'd have them all set for him. And when I became 12, I started working summers giving out cards myself. And at that point, we grew to where there was a small office. My mom was handling the phones, and it was my dad and maybe, 2 or 3 other techs that were more seasonal than anything else working there. And when I would start having my own little pocket of dimes to make telephone calls, I'd call the office because we didn't have beepers or phones in those days.
Yeah.
And my mother would be able to tell where I was working simply because she's already starting to get phone calls of people saying, hey, we just got a call. I just got your card. I got roaches everywhere. So that's everything I started doing. And then when I was 15, I started doing work on my own. And worked summers, throughout college, and got the opportunity to come into the business right after I graduated, and haven't looked back since.
Wow, that's awesome. So you took this over from your parents, or did you work in parallel for a long time?
Yeah, no, I was actually very fortunate to work parallel, and my dad, when I said he was revolutionary, but for whatever reason, he kept everything small. He started with nothing, and once he just got enough to have a little, he had money in his pocket. He could buy, go to the supermarket, pay the rent, and he knew everything was covered. He was content with that. Yeah. He wasn't looking to have the business really begin to become a real company and continue to grow. So those first few years, I won't say we butted heads a little bit, but we had our share of why don't we try this? So let's do that. And I guess I was working in the business around 10 years when he started to get sick. And that's when I really started to take over and I guess put my fingerprints on it.
Yeah.
And, we had, like many businesses, markets changed. The world, when we were dealing with the individuals with those one-shot cleanouts, many factors came together to dry up that market. And we were very, 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 very slow to realize that.
Oh,
I mean, we used to have like a big ad in the yellow pages,
yep,
and the
yep.
phone would just ring. We'd give out our cards, put out the yellow page ad, and, we'd get the customers calling. And then once we got more in those early to mid 90s, the internet started, and we were very slow to think that anybody would look online for a local pest control company.
Yeah.
So we just, oh, they're going to go in the phone book, so it's local. If you go online, it might be a company in California. So we were very slow to adapt to that, and that market just kept getting smaller and smaller. Gel baits came out, which worked so well, which made the active issues smaller and smaller. So we had those, the 90s were a really tough, adjusting period. We kept trying to do the old stuff, but the world changed and that market wasn't there.
Yeah.
And then when I started really taking over in the early 2000s, we said we need to go more commercial. We always had a couple of buildings, a couple of restaurants, but we said, why put our forces into trying to get somebody just for one treatment? Let's get somebody we see constantly. And that really was the moment where things started to really change.
Wow. Now, when did you guys get involved with either the national or the state association?
So, and it's funny, as I became president, it did make me think back on that.
Yeah.
We were, this is such a close-knit industry. And as I started taking things over, Rick Allen, who was part of Residex and then Target, he was always very involved with the New York Pest Management Association. He kept saying, Mike, we need you in there. We need young people in it. We need different, you're such a great guy. You'd be perfect for it. But in my head, I was always like, we're just such a small company. I mean, what would I have to offer? And I do remember as a teenager going with my dad to seminars. And I was just like overwhelmed and impressed with everybody. I mean, because in my mind, everyone was a bigger company or, such a professional. And I remember seeing the people in the association, that were running the show. And I'm like, I remember one time, being at an exhibitor's table, and one of the people who just signed me in was standing next to me, and I was like, almost in awe, like, oh my God, you're right. I mean, like I felt like they totally ran the entire industry, So, I had that image as a kid, coupled with I knew we really weren't a great large company, and so I just kept, maybe one day.
Yeah.
Then one time they asked me, and I'm like, I think I'm ready to take that lead. And I always knew what the association did education-wise, and to a certain extent, with the government, the laws, representing us, throughout. We were always members, and for many years we were members of the New York City Pest Management Association. Right. And then, so maybe 10, 15 years ago, they all got together as one. And like I said, I was just always impressed with everybody. And I always knew the importance that it did for the industry.
Yeah.
And I guess it was, when I got in, I knew we were going to do things with the seminars and doing education-wise. What totally blew me away was the relationships that, as being part of the association, you get with the other companies that are part of it. That totally threw me for a loop. I mean, because here we are competitors, and we're competitors in the same market. And I remember one of my first meetings actually putting a face to one of the companies who I knew was one of my major competitors. Yeah. And we just brought up something like, oh, what are you doing for tree pits, for rodents in the city? And he didn't just brush me off like you would almost expect somebody to. He said, these are the products I'm using, and this is how long it takes us to do it. This is how much I charge per tree pit. And I was like, this is crazy. This is me. And then the next person I spoke with, again, that same type of communication and openness and just sharing, and that totally surprised me, but also totally grabbed me. And I was just like, that made me see everything that the association really has. And, a bunch of people have been asking me, I think what you're about to, like, what my vision is
Yeah.
for everything for it. And it is to get that to everybody as part of the association. I do think most of the other members don't have that yet. Of, hey, I can speak with Andy or I can speak with Mike and I can get,
Hmm.
ideas, how they did it, what would they recommend? Um, and I do think our association is lacking in the management and business sides of things. Everyone knows how to kill the
Hmm.
heck out of every, cockroach out there
Yeah.
and every mouse. But so many of these smaller, newer companies, I think they can learn, we can share a lot on
Sure.
what they don't know that they need to know yet.
Yeah. Now that brings up an interesting thought when you say smaller companies. I've perceived that there's a little bit of a bias towards, hey, I'm not a big company. Why do I need to be a part of the association? Am I going to really benefit for it? Is there a size of company that you think benefits most, or is there something available for the small operation that's maybe one or two people and wants to grow? Or is it valuable for them to get involved?
Oh, absolutely. It is, I mean, it's important for everyone, anyone in in the industry to be part of. I mean, and I was totally wrong when I said, "Oh, we're too small to not, you know, make a difference for the association." I mean, with everything that's going on, I mean, you just read in the news a couple of months ago that someone in Congress wants to ban glue boards.
Yeah.
We hear what's going on in California with banning rodenticides, and these are all being said in our neighborhoods as well. And whether you're a one-man operation or have thousands of people working throughout the entire state, it affects you. And that is one of the biggest things that I don't think most of the smaller people in the industry understand.
Hmm.
Um, we all have a say, and we can all make those sometimes, many times, ridiculous propositions go away once we explain why it is. And, don't get me wrong, on a lot of those early years, I remember struggling to come up with that check for the yearly dues and everything else. And when they
Yeah.
combined and made it, you automatically had to join the national with the regular, and the dues went up that much more. That wasn't an easy check to write. And I remember, that it was, it is a factor for a lot of people. I mean, fortunately, as we grow, because of going to all the seminars and learning and just, making mistakes and learning from them, now that becomes a much easier burden. But for a lot of these smaller companies, I understand it is a struggle for them. And that's why we want for them to get as much out of it as they can. It is not just, all right, I need to do this so I can put it on my website.
Yeah.
I really do believe we could all get some great information and working together, make the laws and regulations, in our favor.
Yeah, yeah, sure. So now that new member, let's say, or prospective new member, what advice would you give them for joining the association and then how to get involved or engaged? I mean, should they just go to some of the workshops and training classes and just kind of be a fly on the wall, or should they reach out to people? What would you give for advice?
So first of all, it's already happened. When we did have the installation, there was um, I think just like a husband and wife, maybe one employee that he has, new company starting in New York City. And he went to the installation dinner, which I thought was amazing, and
Yeah.
introduced himself. And, we exchanged cards and I ended up taking him out to lunch a couple of weeks later.
Mm.
And we're looking to get him as one of the directors now, the regional directors in New York City.
Yeah.
We need the voices of people like that who are just coming out. And he is just a great, exciting, this is all new to him, but he doesn't know the business end of things,
Yeah.
and how, I mean, just, he has a couple of buildings that he was doing, and, just being able to say to him, hey, make sure, everyone go on LinkedIn, look to connect with them. If they go to a new property manager or they end up getting a new job, you reach out to them. And just that alone, he's like, I never even thought of that. I would just hope that they would think of me if they moved positions, something as simple as that. And I
Yeah.
know you're the king of LinkedIn and, posting and everything else like that. You probably did 3 posts already while we're doing
No,
this.
yeah,
And,
that's right.
but little things like that. And those are the things that I want everyone to be able to get out of this. Now, it's wonderful that I was able to have lunch with Gareth and, go over that. But what about that small guy in Albany who's just starting?
Sure.
And, to come up with ways that we could all almost have our ongoing roundtable and constantly share, all these kind of, questions and, ideas from each other.
Yeah. Now, as you came up through taking over from your parents and being involved with the association, doing things, who are some of the mentors you had along that path besides your dad? I mean, that was a
That's a given.
softball, right? That
That's
was
a,
a given. That's a
yeah.
given. So besides your dad, like who did you pull in people from the industry outside of your company and have mentorships and things?
Sure. Of course, I mean, the distributors,
Mm,
our main sales reps have always been one of the main initial ones that we started to grow into. And Rick Allen, I already mentioned, was one of the great ones. And oh my, I feel horrible that I forgot his name, but it was from York Chemical, Steve Walsh. Steve Walsh. And he was another one. So, two different, distributors, but they both were hands-on in different ways. And those two individuals, they were great. And then growing up, I was very lucky to be growing up in the Long Island, New York City area. And Dr. Austin Frischman was one of the main educators and he everything, consultants, everything in the area. And like nearly every show we went to, he would be on, and it was like a show. I mean, he was be running around. He had all his toys and showing you how to use everything. Somebody fell asleep, he'd run in their face and scream and wake them up. Just a wonderful person. And then over the years, we were very fortunate to hire him as a consultant. So being getting started in New York City, roaches, rodents, those were all the big things. And then when I got married and we slowly started to expand a little bit more into the suburbs, uh, termites started coming up. And this was right around the time when chlordane got banned, right
mm,
after that.
yeah.
So first of all, I knew nothing about termites. And now, like, I mean, the best product we ever had is gone. What do you do? So I got the opportunity to work with Dr. Frischman. I went to his house out on Long Island in Plainview, I think it was, and 4 weekends in a row, and he gave me the termite lessons that you could ever imagine. So he was by far one of the best
Wow.
in the industry that I was very fortunate, to learn a lot from between that and restaurants and everything else. And wonderful person.
Yeah, yeah. So now, where do you see the state association going in the next several years? You have a 2-year term, and then maybe through that and beyond. What do you see in the future here?
It's always an interesting question. I mean, we know that the industry, especially in our area, and I guess upstate and downstate, mergers, acquisitions have been going on like crazy, and I do know we have been getting many more of those mid-sized companies gobbled up into one bigger company. And I know that that affects everything, in the industry, the associations as well. You go from having, 300, 400 small companies to, 200 bigger companies. It would be interesting to see if the trend does start to change a little bit, that um, there is more opportunity for smaller companies and we start to see that cycle increasing, which I do anticipate is going to happen in the near future, whether it's in this 2-year period, but I definitely think that is going to happen within the next, 2 to 5 years, that the bigger companies, just due to their size, are going to miss large parts of the market in different areas, and that's going to be great opportunities for the smaller companies.
Yeah. Do you see a change in how the association sort of reaches out to and interacts with the membership?
I would love to see things much more. open and continuous rather than just, a couple times a year at a seminar. And, that might be one of my challenges on how we can create something in this window of time that we have to make things more open for that. Like right now, if there was a smaller company, let's just say a guy has, him and two other part-time workers. If he had a question on, do I need a payroll service? Or
Yep.
how do I need to pay overtime? Or do I need to do this? So he's going to Google it, and he's going to go online, and he's going to go who knows where. But I think that those are the kind of questions, if that's a small pest control company, that they should be coming to us first.
Yeah.
And, then the answers might be there, especially, if you are already a member. National has some fantastic information. And even if we don't have it, we could at least guide them towards that. But in today's world, we have so much information that is accessible in so many different ways that, they're not coming to us first. And I think that's a shame. And I think that's a total missed opportunity. And I don't think it's an easy answer. I don't think just like, hey, chat with us on the corner of the website is going to be enough to make that work. But,
Right.
Something along those lines of getting better communication ongoing.
Yeah. Now, to that end, I know we have two events coming up. We got the downstate event on September 30th, and the upstate event on November 5th, so people can meet in person. Sometimes I think those in-person meetings can be great because it maybe lowers a barrier where it's hard to just pick up a phone and call somebody. But if you happen to sit next to somebody at an event, you can strike up a conversation. I think that going to some of those live in-person things can be real beneficial.
Oh, absolutely. And that's the other thing I would tell everybody, just talk to anybody and everyone. Don't be like, oh, I don't do termite work, so why should I talk with this guy at the table? I mean, every vendor, whether they're selling a product or a service, has been in this industry their entire life, most of them. And they might be selling, a product, like, I don't need that, or but they were handling a route for 20 years. They were, selling chemicals for many years. They've been involved, on the legal ends for many years. The amount of information everyone in this industry has, you don't know what you're going to be able to get from anybody and everyone next to you.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So if people want to reach out to you, how can they go ahead and do that?
Absolutely. I mean, they can email me at any time, michael@bhbpest.com, and I will be happy to help anybody with anything, whether you're a long seasoned vet, or, a brand new rookie. We all have questions, and all of us have our own answers. Hopefully we can help each other.
Awesome. Awesome. Michael, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll have to chat a few more times, I think, as you go through your term. I think it's interesting to see how things progress and what we got cooking. So hopefully we'll see you at the September 30th event that's at Heritage Club at Bethpage. And then November 5th up in East Syracuse at Barbagallo's Convention Center. And join the association. That's the main theme I think we get across from here.
Talk to all of us.
Absolutely, reach out. Everybody's available. I don't think I've ever had a situation that I've had someone be a jerk or not want to chat. I mean, you can talk to just about anybody in this industry.
I mean, we all want to. I mean, they thrive on it.
Now, sometimes you might regret that you talked to the person because you can't get away from them, and they're just going to go on and on. But hey.
Yeah, I mean, I once had one distributor I had to call about a really bad fly issue we had at a restaurant.
Yeah.
I just called him on the whim like 7:00 at night. I couldn't get him off the phone. Like at 9:00 at night, I'm just like, oh no, all right, I got it.
No.
And he's like, well, I'm in New York. We're going to go there together. I mean, it was just amazing to see, how helpful everybody wants to be.
Everybody does, for sure. Michael, thanks again, and I'm sure we'll chat again soon.
Absolutely. See you soon, Andy. Thank you.
Yep.